Kojiki, the Centipede's Cave and the Snake's Cave. 1. Okyuni no Kami, the deity of this tale, had many brothers known as the 80 gods. Hearing that there was a beautiful woman named Yagami-hime in the land of Inaba, all the 80 gods, each wanting to take her as their bride, decided to travel to Inaba together. They took advantage of Okyuni-nushi's gentle nature, making him carry their luggage as a servant. When they reached the seaside at Ketaka in Inaba, they found a furless, bare-skinned rabbit lying on the ground, gasping in pain. Seeing the rabbit, the 80 gods mocked it, saying, "Hey, rabbit, if you want fur to grow on your body, bathe in the salt water of the sea and then lie down on a high mountain where the wind blows. Your fur will grow back in no time." The rabbit believed their words and immediately bathed in the sea, drenching itself completely, and then climbed to the mountain. It lay there as instructed, but as the salt water dried, the skin all over its body tightened and tore apart, leaving the rabbit in excruciating pain. Unable to endure the stinging agony, the rabbit wailed and collapsed in tears. Just then, Okyuni-nushi, who was trailing behind the group, came across the suffering rabbit. Gently, he asked, "Hey there, little rabbit. Why are you crying so much?" The rabbit, sobbing, replied, "I was originally a rabbit from Oki Island, but I wanted to cross over to this mainland. Since I had no way to get across, I decided to trick the sharks in the sea. I told them, which of us has more kin, you or me? Let's settle it by counting. Bring all your relatives and line them up from here all the way to the Cape of Ketaka over there. I'll walk across your backs and count as I go." The sharks believed me completely. They gathered in great numbers, swarming until the sea turned black with them. Just as I had requested, they lined up in a single row from the shore here to the cape over there. I began counting as I walked across their backs. But when I was about to take the final step onto the shore, I taunted them, shouting, "Ha ha, you foolish sharks. You've been completely tricked by me." The last shark in line, furious at being deceived, grabbed me and tore off all my fur. That's why I was lying over there crying in pain. Then, the 80 gods who passed by earlier told me, "We'll give you some good advice. Bathe in the seawater and lie in the wind." I did as they said, but as the salt water dried, my skin tightened, and now it's all torn to shreds like this. The rabbit broke down in tears again. Okyuni no Kami, feeling deeply sorry for the rabbit after hearing its story, said gently, "Go quickly to the mouth of the river over there and wash your body thoroughly with fresh water. Then, pick some of the cattail flowers growing nearby, lay them down as a bed, and lie on top of them. If you do this, your body will heal completely and you'll return to your original form." Okyuni no Kami kindly explained this remedy to the rabbit, who was overjoyed and expressed its gratitude. Then, the rabbit added, "Those cruel 80 gods will never succeed in making Yagami-hime theirs. Even though you are carrying their luggage and acting as their servant, mark my words, Yagami-hime will surely become your bride. Just wait and see." Before long, the 80 gods reached Yagami-hime's dwelling. Each, in turn, demanded that she marry him. However, Yagami-hime rejected them all, saying, "No matter what you say, I will not become yours. I have decided to marry Okyuni no Kami, who is there among you." Hearing this, the 80 gods were enraged. They conspired together and decided to kill Okyuni no Kami. They led him to a mountain called Tamano in the land of Hoki and said, "There is a red boar on this mountain. We will drive it down from the top, and you must catch it at the bottom. If you let it escape, we will kill you instead." The 80 gods then rushed up the mountain and built a large fire. Into the flames, they placed a huge stone that resembled a boar and heated it until it was red hot. Then, they rolled the burning stone down the slope, shouting, "There it goes. Catch it." Okyuni no Kami, waiting at the foot of the mountain, saw the stone coming and, thinking it was the boar, leapt forward and tried to seize it with all his strength. The searing hot stone stuck to his skin, and with a single cry of pain, he collapsed and perished. 2. Okyuni no Kami's mother, upon hearing of his fate, was overcome with grief. Weeping bitterly, she ascended into the heavens and sought the aid of Takami Musubi no Kami, a deity of the Kamigahara. Takami Musubi no Kami responded immediately, sending two divine shellfish maidens, Kisogaheim, the arc clam, and Umagaheim, the clam, down to the mortal realm to help. The two maidens hurried down and found Okyuninushi lying at the foot of the mountain, charred and lifeless. Kisogaheim ground down her own shell to create a black powder, while Umagaheim produced water to mix with the powder. They made a paste as thick as milk and carefully applied it over Okyuninushi's entire body. Miraculously, his severe burns healed at once. Restored to his original form, he arose as a handsome young deity once more and began walking home. When the 80 gods saw this, they were astonished. Furious at their failed attempt, they huddled together to scheme again. This time, they lured Okyuninushi into a different mountain. Once there, they tricked him into entering the hollow of a massive tree. Working together, they bent the tree at its base and drove wedges into the split trunk to hold it open. When Okyuninushi stepped inside, they suddenly removed the wedges, causing the tree to snap shut and crush him to death. Okyuninushi's mother, alarmed when her son once again failed to return, searched desperately for him. Eventually, she discovered his lifeless body trapped in the tree. With great urgency, she split the tree open and retrieved her son's remains. Pouring her heart into reviving him, she tended to his injuries with unwavering care. Finally, after much effort, she succeeded in bringing him back to life once more. Okyuninushi's mother said to him, "You cannot remain safely in this land any longer. Please, go immediately to Ninokatasukuni, where Susanoo no Mikado resides. If you seek his protection, he will surely find a way to help you." With her guidance, Okyuninushi set out for Ninokatasukuni and eventually arrived at the place where Susanoo no Mikado dwelled. There, Susanoo's daughter, Suzuraiheim, greeted him and acted as an intermediary, saying, "Father, a handsome deity has arrived." Hearing this, Susanoo hurried out to see for himself. Upon laying eyes on Okyuninushi, he remarked, "Ah, that is the god known as Okyuninushi." He immediately welcomed Okyuninushi inside. Suzuraiheim, captivated by Okyuninushi's beauty and kind demeanor, quickly fell in love with him. However, this did not sit well with Susanoo, who was displeased by his daughter's feelings. Determined to put the young god to the test, he devised a plan to trouble him. That evening, Susanoo directed Okyuninushi to sleep in a chamber known as the Snake Room, a sinister place teeming with large and small serpents. Suzuraiheim, concerned for Okyuninushi's safety, felt immense pity for him. Secretly, she gave him her hire, a kind of cloth draped over the shoulders, whispering, "If the snakes come to attack you, wave this cloth 3 times to drive them away." Soon, the snakes raised their heads and slithered toward Okyuninushi. Following Suzuraiheim's instructions, he waved the decorative cloth 3 times. Miraculously, the snakes retreated, remaining still and harmless throughout the night. The young god was able to sleep peacefully and, by morning, appeared before Susanoo with a calm demeanor. Seeing this, Susanoo devised another trial, directing Okyuninushi to sleep in a room filled with centipedes and bees that night. Once again, Suzuraiheim secretly handed him another protective cloth. Using it, Okyuninushi managed to ward off the centipedes and bees, enjoying yet another restful night. When Okyuninushi emerged unscathed for the second time, Susanoo grew frustrated. Thinking, "This time, I'll truly test him," he decided on a new ordeal. Susanoo took a Kabura arrow, an arrow with a whistling head, and shot it into the center of a vast field overgrown with tall grass. Turning to Okyuninushi, he ordered, "Retrieve the arrow." Okyuninushi dutifully followed the command and waded into the grass to search for the arrow. Once he was deep within the field, Susanoo set fire to the grass, encircling the entire area with flames. Caught off guard, Okyuninushi soon found himself surrounded by fire, with no escape. As he stood in dismay, wondering what to do, a small mouse appeared before him and squeaked. Inside is hollow, outside is narrow. Understanding the mouse's cryptic advice, Okyuninushi stomped firmly on the ground beneath him. It gave way, revealing a large hole. He quickly slipped into it and crouched down, hiding from the flames. The fire passed over the hole, and when it finally subsided, Okyuninushi emerged unscathed once more. Before long, the same mouse returned, holding the Kabura arrow in its mouth. It had found the arrow that the great god had shot. Upon closer inspection, Okyuninushi noticed that the arrow's feathered fletching had been completely chewed off by the mouse's younglings. 3. Susanoo's daughter, Suzurai Hime, unaware of the events, assumed that the beautiful young god Okyuninushi had surely perished in the fire. Overcome with grief, she mourned deeply and hurriedly prepared to perform rites for the deceased. Carrying offerings for the departed, she wept as she searched for his remains. Susanoo, confident that this time Okyuninushi had indeed met his end, followed his daughter, expecting to witness the proof of his demise. However, to their astonishment, Okyuninushi emerged from the charred field unharmed, holding the recovered Kabura arrow in his hand. Even the great god Susanoo was secretly amazed. Realizing there was no choice, he begrudgingly returned to his palace with Okyuninushi. Inside a grand hall, Susanoo reclined on the floor and suddenly commanded, "You there, rid my head of lice." Okyuninushi obediently parted Susanoo's long, thick hair to examine his scalp, only to find it crawling with centipedes rather than lice. As he hesitated, Suzurai Hime discreetly approached and handed him a handful of muku nuts and red clay. Okyuninushi, following her advice, crushed the nut with his teeth and mixed it with a bit of the clay, chewing them together. He spat the mixture out, mimicking the act of biting and killing the centipedes. Susanoo, noticing this, murmured with approval, "Ah, he's diligently biting down on the centipedes." Impressive. Feeling reassured, the god drifted into a peaceful sleep. Okyuninushi, realizing that lingering any longer in Susanoo's domain would only invite further peril, took advantage of Susanoo's deep sleep. Cleverly, he divided Susanoo's long hair into bundles, tying each one securely to the rafters of the palace. He then propped an enormous boulder, so heavy that it would take hundreds to move it, against the entrance, ensuring Susanoo could not easily escape. Afterward, Okyuninushi took Susanoo's prized sword, bow, arrows, and a bejeweled koto, Japanese harp. Carrying Suzurai Hime on his back, he made a swift and quiet escape. As they fled, however, the koto struck a tree trunk and produced a loud, resonant sound that echoed through the forest. Startled by the noise, Susanoo awoke. Rising abruptly, he discovered that his hair had been tied to the rafters. When he tried to stand, the entire room collapsed around him with a thunderous crash. Enraged, Susanoo bellowed, "You wretched brat of a god!" He struggled to untie the bundles of his hair one by one, but by the time he freed himself, Okyuninushi and Suzurai Hime had already fled far away. Susanoo pursued them with great speed and caught up at the slope of Yomatsuhirasaka, the border of the underworld. Standing atop the hill, he called out in a booming voice, "Hey, you brat god! Listen up. Take that sword and those arrows of mine, and use them to hunt down your brothers, the 80 gods. Chase them through the mountains and rivers until none are left. Become the ruler of the land and build your palace at the foot of Mount Uka. As for my daughter, you may take her as your wife. Do you understand?" Hearing these words, Okyuninushi bowed and accepted Susanoo's commands. With the mighty sword and bow gifted to him, he set out to confront the 80 gods who had tormented him. He relentlessly pursued them through mountains and rivers, cutting them down and casting them into the depths. Not a single one escaped his wrath. Having eradicated his foes, Okyuninushi became the supreme deity of the land. He built his grand palace at the base of Mount Uka and lived there happily with Suzurai Hime, enjoying a life of peace and prosperity. 4. In time, the goddess Yakami Hime, who had once been in love with Okyuninushi, came to visit him, but by then he was already married to the esteemed Suzurai Hime. Sadly, Yakami Hime returned home, her heart heavy. Okyuninushi continued to expand his dominion, gradually bringing order and prosperity to the lands. One day, while he was near the seaside of the Miho Cape in the Izumo province, a small deity appeared on the horizon, accompanied by followers. The deity and their entourage rode a boat made of the tiny seeds of gagai grass, and their clothing was made from the skin of a solitary insect. Okyuninushi, intrigued, asked the deity, Who are you? However, the small god did not answer, keeping silent and refusing to reveal their name. Okyuninushi turned to his followers for help, but they too were unable to identify the visitor. At that moment, a frog hopped over and said, "That deity is surely known to Kuebiko. He is a god who lives in the mountains and fields, and although he cannot walk, he knows everything that happens in the world." Kuebiko, despite being immobile, had vast knowledge of all things. So, Okyuninushi quickly asked Kuebiko about the small god. Kuebiko replied, "That deity is the child of the great divine spirit Kamamasabai, known as Sukuna Bakona, the god of small stature." With this information, Okyuninushi immediately sought out Kamamasabai, who confirmed, "Yes, that is indeed my child." Kamamasabai then directed Sukuna Bakona, saying, "You and Okyuninushi shall become brothers and work together to establish and strengthen the lands." Okyuninushi, following the words of Kamamasabai, worked alongside Sukuna Bakona to gradually build and expand the land. However, Sukuna Bakona soon departed for the distant and far-off land of Tokoyokuni, beyond the sea. Feeling despondent, Okyuninushi thought, "I cannot continue to expand the land alone. Is there no god who could lend me strength?" He was deeply saddened and uncertain. At that moment, a divine presence appeared, shining brilliantly across the sea. It was the god Atoshi, the child of Susanoo. Atoshi approached and said to Okyuninushi, "If you honor and revere me, I will help you build and strengthen the land. You cannot do it alone." Okyuninushi asked, "How should I honor you?" Atoshi replied, "Worship me on top of the mountains of Yamato." Following these instructions, Okyuninushi honored Atoshi, and together, they continued to expand the land and strengthen the country.